And our story today comes from this country right here, right in the middle, called Zambia. And our story is not a story that just took place a few weeks ago or a few years ago like some of our other stories have been this quarter. This one took place quite a while ago. It took place over 100 years ago. Whoa. Back when the very, very first missionary was coming to the country of Zambia. It wasn't even called Zambia back then. It was called Northern Rhodesia. And that missionary story is found in this book here, Desert Track and Jungle Trail. And I was going to ask Miss Suzanne, do you know if our church library has a copy of this book?
It's possible, but
Yeah, I can never remember for sure. But anyhow, I wanted to tell you a story that took place to the very first missionary that went into Zambia. His name was William Harrison Anderson. Everybody called him Harry. And Harry and his wife were missionaries going there. And it was so wild back then that there weren't any roads. If you were going to go out to try to find people or to create a mission station, you made your own roads. You had to usually get a big ox cart and have 10 or 12 or 18 oxen, big old bullocks, pulling your cart along over bumpy desert and through big pits of sand and across big streams. They were pioneers, just like the American pioneers who were going out west many years ago. They had to deal with lions, they had to deal with often tribes of people who had never seen a white person before and who were scared of them or who maybe wanted to kill them. They had lots of exciting adventures that happened. Well, after they'd been out there for quite a while, for many years actually, they now had a little bit better conveniences. Like they had a car now. Of course, you didn't always have a road to drive the car on because only some roads have been paved and the rest of the roads are still like old cart roads that were just all full of potholes and hard to get across. One day, Harry came running up to the house to talk to his wife. He said, we received a letter. We received a letter from the director of our whole mission division, and he is heading back to America soon. He's going to go and give them a report on everything that we've been doing out here and that all the other missionaries have been doing. And he asked me to come and meet him in the town where the boat will be leaving from, to give him our report for the year so he can go back to America and tell everybody what we've been doing, and so that he can ask them for the money that we need to still be able to do more things, like build enough schools and have enough food to feed the students. And so it was very important that Harry could get there and make his report. But the letter had been delayed, and now there wasn't much time to get there. There was only about 10 days, and that doesn't sound like it would be that big of a deal. Except let's look at our map to figure out where they were going to need to go. They were going to need to go all the way here, and they were starting off here. This was probably about 500 miles that they had to get. And this was in the days when sometimes there would be a good road and sometimes there wouldn't be a good road. And so his wife said, we better get hurrying if we're going to get there in time. We don't have very many days to get there. So they packed up their truck. They had a pickup truck. And they packed it up with things, and then they asked their servant boy to come along. They needed somebody to help them with all the cooking and setting up camp because they were going to have to camp along the way. Sometimes there wouldn't always be a town to stay in. And so their pickup truck was so full that the servant boy, the way that he would ride along is that they had a running board. Anybody know what a running board is on a car? It's like this piece of metal that sticks out from the side on the outside of the car. You can step on it to step into the car. And he was going to ride just standing on that running board. So he would just hang on to the side of the pickup and put his feet on there and just ride along on the outside of the car. Doesn't sound very safe to me. But that was the only space they had. They were crammed into the two seats in the front of the pickup. The back of the pickup was all full, and the servant boy was just hanging on to the side, and they took off. And they were driving, and they drove for a few days, and finally they came to the last day before they were going to get to the town that they needed to get to. And that morning, Harry woke up really early. He started packing up the tent. He said to his wife, if we hurry, we should get there today, and that means we'll get there with just enough time to give our report before the boat sails off to America. His wife said, are you sure we'll get there? Because these roads have been pretty bumpy and rough, and there have been a lot of roads that aren't paved. He said, no. I heard there's a really nice road that we should be able to get to very soon. A nice road that's paved and wide and smooth. It's going to be easy to get this last few hundred miles. So they got on the road, and they were going along kind of bumpity roads, and they just had left their campground, just had left their campsite, and gone around a turn. And what do you think was sitting on the dusty road right in front of them? They saw up ahead on the road a lion, just sitting there on the road. Harry said he was sitting just like a dog sits, just kind of with his legs tucked up under him and his paws in front, just looking. So they stopped the car, obviously, because when you see a lion in the road, you probably would stop your car, right? They stopped and they watched to see if the lion would maybe leave now that he saw the pickup truck there. And the lion didn't move. The lion just sat there looking at them. And Harry's wife, Mary, said to him, so what are we going to do? He said, I know what I'll do. I'm going to honk the horn. That sounds like a good idea, right? I mean, if you see something on the road, you want to get out of the way, honk the horn. So he honks the horn. Bonk, bonk. What do you think the lion did? It didn't move. It just sat there looking at them. He thought, okay, what's wrong with this lion? Is the lion deaf? Does the lion have a problem? His wife said, what are we going to do now? He said, okay, I'm going to rev up the engine. I'm going to kind of drive at him really fast and then stop again and see if he gets nervous and moves out of the way.
And then honk his horn really.
And honk the horn too. Sure, that might be a good plan. So he revved the engine and then he released the brake and went forward about 15 feet and stopped. And the lion didn't move. Stubborn lion. So he said, okay, we don't have much further until we get right up close to the lion. And the servant boy who was sitting on the outside of the car said, could we hurry up and go, please? Because the servant boy was on the outside of the car. That lion could just come along and snack on him. So Harry said, okay, last try. I'm just going to drive right at the lion, full speed, and we're going to hope it gets out of the way. So they revved the engine, they released the brake, drove at the lion with the tires spinning and dust flying, and the lion at the last moment bounded out of the way off to the side of the road. And Harry didn't even stop. He just kept right on going. Whew! And Harry's wife, Mary, looked over at him and said, okay, that's enough excitement for today. I hope nothing else happens as exciting as that. But if you know how mission stories go, there's probably going to be something just as exciting in a couple of minutes. They drove along, bumpity bump, bump, bumpity bump, 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 and finally they came to a place where they saw a big paved road cutting off to one side. And Harry said, that must be the beautiful, big, paved, wide, smooth road that I was told would take us all the way to the town we need to get to. See, the rest of this trip is going to be easy, no problem. So he turned onto the big, wide road and they started zipping along down the road. And as they went down the road, they came around a turn and they were going along fairly quickly, but not too fast. They're kind of enjoying the day. And then up ahead, on the right side of the road, Harry saw something happening. He saw something coiled up. What sits in a coil shape?
A snake.
It was a snake. It was a cobra. And Harry says that the cobra was this thick as your arm, as thick as a man's arm, he said. So like this thick of a cobra. And he said it was about 12 feet long. It was all coiled up. And it was watching the road like it was upset and ready to strike. And Harry saw it. He said, hang on, I'm going as fast as I can. And he zipped forward. And the servant boy who was on the right side of the truck, the same side of the truck that the cobra was going to be on, started screaming, ah! He was so scared because he saw the snake too. And Harry only had a moment to say, dear God, protect us. And he drove on and the snake struck at the car, at the pickup truck. It missed the servant boy just by inches, and Harry said that the sound of the snake hitting the truck sounded like a hammer hitting the truck. It was so strong and so hard, clang, and it didn't hit the boy, which is very fortunate because cobras are very poisonous, and if a cobra bites you, you will probably die unless you can get some medical help very quickly. And the servant boy, he just kept screaming even after they went past. He was like, ah, ah, ah. He was so nervous. What a day. A lion and now a cobra? Oh. And Harry's wife said, okay, that is enough. I can't take any more excitement for the day. The rest of the day should be nice and calm until we get to the city that we're going to. Do you think it was?
No.
A couple minutes later, they were on the nice paved road and they came around a wide turn in the road. Now, Harry was driving along on the side of the road that he was used to driving on because in Zambia, they would drive on the right side of the road. And so he would drive on the right, and if cars were coming, they would come from the other side. So they'd pass each other like this. But what Harry didn't realize is that they had crossed into another country by this point. And in that country, everybody drove on the left side of the road. So if you were driving along on the right side, somebody was coming at you on this way. You needed to be on this side so they wouldn't crash into you. Harry didn't know that. He came around the turn, and there was a car coming right at him in the lane that Harry was driving in. Harry didn't know what to do. Ah, 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 ah. And he swerved to the other side, and the other car swerved to the other side. And so then they both swerved the other way, and at the last moment, the other car swerved all the way off the road. he just missed hitting a tree, and Harry just kept on going, and they were all just so shocked, they didn't even stop the car. They were just driving. Didn't know what happened. Harry looked in his rearview mirror, he saw the other car was okay. Mary looked at him, Harry looked at Mary. Mary said I didn't want any more excitement for this ride. This was scary. Harry said, I know, I don't know what's happening. It's like Satan doesn't want us to get to the town or something. All these things keep happening. Okay, well, we should be fine now. And just then, the road stopped. The pavement stopped. There was no more pavement. It was back to dirt road again. Harry said, this can't be the right road. The road we're looking for is a road that takes us all the way straight through on beautiful pavement all the way to the town we're trying to get to. This can't be the right road. We must have made a mistake. Oh. So they turned the car around. They'd gone about 15 miles on the new road, so they wasted all that time. Turned the car around. They drove back. They could see the dirt marks where the car had gone off the road, but everything had been okay. A little while later, as they came around the turn, they knew the cobra had been there. They slowed down and they checked. No, the cobra was gone now, not by the road anymore. They drove all the way back to the road that they had left before. Well, now where do we go? Let's keep going on the bumpy road. So they went on the bumpy road a little ways. They finally found a sign pointing one direction. But it was written in a language they didn't speak. They didn't speak French. This sign was written in French. Is this the one we're supposed to follow? We don't really know. Let's pray. So they prayed, Dear God, we're not sure which is the right road now. And it's been kind of a tough day. So we really need you to help guide us. So please show us the right way to go. Amen. And they opened their eyes and they looked at the sign. And Harry said, you know, I think we should follow the way that sign is going. Even though that sign's pointing down a road that is not paved, I think that's the right way we should go. And his wife said, okay, but do you hear that noise? And Harry said, what? Oh yeah, I do hear a noise. What is that noise? And they listened and it kind of sounded like a roaring sound, but it wasn't an animal roaring sound. So they weren't really sure what could make it. And it kind of sounded like a blowing sound, and it kind of sounded like a whooshing sound. And then Harry was looking around and he looked off to the side where all the trees were. And he looked and he saw there was smoke coming up from inside the trees. And then he saw that some of the trees were on fire. And he said, it's a forest fire! Get in the car! And they jumped in the car and started driving. Now the thing is, if there's a forest fire coming along and the trees are really dry and dead, they're going to burn really fast. Forest fires can actually move very, very quickly through dead forest. And this was a really dry, dead forest. Harry knew he needed to drive as fast as he could, but there was a problem. They weren't on a paved road. And not only that, the road that they were on, well, I told you these were old ox cart roads. So there would be like a road, there would be like a lane for one tire and a lane for your other tire. But in the middle, it was just all like grass and dirt. And sometimes the grass would get kind of tall in tall clumps. And if you went too fast, you might crash into something that was hidden in those tall clumps. Because in many parts of Africa, there are these things called termite hills. Termites, which are like a type of ant, they build these hills, but they're not soft ant hills like you can stomp on that fall over easily. They're rock hard. And if you crash into one of those with your car, bam, you're going to knock your engine right out of your car, or you'll destroy the tire. So Harry's going as fast as he could to outrun the fire, but not too fast because he didn't want to run into an anthill, into a termite hill. And he was so nervous and he was just praying aloud the whole time, Dear God, protect us, Dear God, protect us. Now, the fire started catching up to them. It didn't catch up to them on the road because there was no trees right on the road, but it was on either side blowing past them, and sparks started to fly out, and sparks started to fly in through the windows. They didn't have actual windows they could roll up because it was always so hot there, they didn't have windows to roll up. The sparks were flying through the windows, landing on Mary's lap. She was brushing the sparks off. The poor servant boy on the outside of the truck kept yelping and went, ouch, ouch! Sparks were landing on his skin, and they were going as fast as they could. And then Harry thought of something else. We have all these extra tanks of gas in the trunk of the pickup in case we run out of gas. And if a spark lands on that, kablooey, we could have a big explosion. This is a very difficult day for a missionary, isn't it? What a stressful day. They drove on praying the whole way, and finally the road led them away from the forest area, and they got away from there, and they were finally safe from the fire, and they were just exhausted. And because they had no windows, have you ever been close to a fire, like really close to a fire, like maybe when you went camping, do you start to smell like smoke? They smell like smoke, but they didn't just smell like smoke. There had been so much smoke and soot and sparks blowing in. They were covered in black soot. They were all just all dirty looking, and then the sweat was making lines go down their faces. They looked like a mess. And their trip wasn't even done yet. Oh, they were so exhausted and tired, but they thanked God for saving them from the fire and from the cobra and from the lion and from the guy on the wrong side of the road. And Mary said, I'm almost scared to say it, but I really hope this is the last bad thing that happens to us today. And it pretty much was. The last thing that happened almost was no big deal at this point. They had to get their boat on a ferry to go across one river to get to the town. And when they got there, instead of a nice big sturdy ferry boat with big strong engines and a nice safe place to park your car and tie it on the boat so you could carry it safely across, you know what they had to ride across? They had to put their boat on 7 canoes. They had 7 canoes all tied together with a rope, and they had some boards on top, and they drove their car on top of these rickety old canoes, and then they just stayed there calmly in their truck, hoping that nothing would overbalance and tip over while the people rowed the canoes across until they got to the other side. That was scary, but it honestly wasn't as scary as a cobra and a lion and a forest fire. So by that point, Mary and Harry were just saying, God, you brought us this far. We're just going to pray that you'll protect us in this part too, because we can't do anything about these canoes tipping over. So we just pray, please protect us. And he did. And they got across the river. And finally, they drove into town. It was late in the evening. People were out walking up and down the streets. And they saw this truck coming into town covered in soot, covered in dirt. The people driving it were all covered in soot and sweating and looking just dirty and nasty. The poor servant boy on the outside of the truck hanging on there, when he started off that day, his outfit had been pretty nice white colored that he wrapped around himself. Now it was all dirt black and covered with scorch marks. Everybody looked like a mess, but they had made it in time. God had protected them and brought them there safely. And they were able to give their report, and the report was taken back to America by that man who was sailing on the boat, and that report helped them to be able to get the money raised from offerings given just like by children like you in Sabbath schools to send back to Harry in Africa, so that there in Zambia and in Angola they could raise new mission stations and help teach more boys and girls about Jesus. And so that's the part that you guys are in. See, the only part of that kind of a story that you get to see is this little box right here with dollar bills in it. That's all you get to see. And sometimes when we see a box like that with dollar bills in it, we go, that's kind of boring. I don't think I need to worry about putting any money there. What good does it do if I put something in there? It doesn't matter. But you know, when a mission offering goes somewhere, you never know where it might go. And you never know what kind of things the poor missionary might have been suffering through just to be able to get people to know about Jesus. And when you send your mission offerings like that to help somebody who's across in some other part of the world, going through difficult times like lions on the road and cobras attacking their car and forest fires chasing them, that is not just a little thing anymore. You are saying to them, hey, thank you for the things you are doing to help Jesus teach people about how much he loves them. And I want to help too. And this is one of the ways you can start helping right now. Now, when you grow up, you may end up growing up to help in other ways, like maybe even traveling to other parts of the world and being a missionary too, and helping to teach people about Jesus wherever you might be. But don't forget, you can start practicing right now, even in your own neighborhood. You can start practicing teaching people about Jesus, showing them with your example how Jesus is kind and loving. So let's not forget the story of Harry and Mary and their crazy car ride. And let's not forget that we have a chance to be missionaries starting today. Let's say a prayer. Thank you, dear Heavenly Father, for the story of Harry Anderson and his wife. Thank you that through that day of danger and adventure and so many others that they had, that you were protecting and watching over them, and that now there are more than 3,000 schools and churches in that part of Africa that were all influenced by Harry and his mission work. Please watch over all the missionaries today, wherever they may be. People who are in dangerous countries, or people might be angry at them for talking about Jesus. People who are far away from their family, who might be getting sick right now. Please be with each missionary and bless them, Father, and help the offerings that we bring to just be one small way we can contribute to the work that they are doing. Help us to not forget to be missionaries in our own towns, in our schools, in our homes. Thank you that you love us so much that you will help us do that too. We love you back. Amen.